2.
Resolution 18-13, Draft 2 establishes a real property tax stakeholders task force. Establishes the above titled task force under the direction of the Finance Director to address recommendations contained in the International Association of Assessing Officers, IAAO report, who will meet a minimum of once per month and shall submit quarterly reports to the Council that provide all findings and recommendations of the task force, addressing the recommendations in the IAAO report. This task force will dissolve on November 30, 2014, unless the Council approves a one-year extension by resolution. Introduced by Ms. Wille, approve FC 74.
A motion to approve Resolution 18.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Wille, second by Mr. Yoshimoto. Ms. Wille?
Support for this Resolution 18 Draft 13, Draft 2, as is, and without further amendment. I was asked to do this, work on this along with the administration. We spent considerable time with Nancy Crawford formulating and the composition, the numbers, and who, and agreed that 9 permanent members would be good. And balancing that out, we felt 4 from the administration, 2 from the council, and 3 public members. One of the reasons we felt that going more than 9 would make it harder to reach consensus, and we were both very much into focusing that this would be aimed for a consensus group. Perhaps at some point there might be something that's voted on, but basically we felt that that was probably the unit that we would need would best function in that consensus goal capacity. Originally, there was an ad hoc, and because we felt, or the prior council and people that testified felt that having some permanent public members would be good, was the reason that it was really switched from an ad hoc group to a task force so that they would be there. I want to say I've had a number of people ask me, and I know they've approached others about being able to participate, and that what about these 3 and why not others? The way Nancy and I looked at that was sort of as a 2-layer, that we really felt having 3 permanent people, public people, but that anyone, whether it's the council members or others wanting others to come that had particular expertise in an area, that we would be happy to do that. Let me say one of the reasons that I've been willing to do this, I didn't get a lot of volunteers from this council, is because I felt we'd have those 3 that would work really hard and be on here permanently. If you have someone that comes in intermittently for a different area, you don't have that integrated approach and that level of knowledge that I'm expecting of these 3. 2 of these 3 were on the ad hoc. They've already had a lot of time working on these issues. Stuart Huffey is, really an expert in terms of assessing and appraising. There are 2 people on here. The core people are on the Hilo side, 1 on West side. We just, anyway, felt I feel this is balanced, and therefore I would ask that you all support it as is. We'd like to get going as soon as possible. And again, I want to say, bringing other people in is great, but just having those extra 3 that are going to work really hard, I feel would be very helpful to me and to the group as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Onishi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I totally support what Ms. Wille is saying, but, I do have 2 amendments here, and after, thinking about it and talking to Nancy yesterday, and she agreed, or I agreed with her in that what Ms. Wille had mentioned, that it's better to have, 3 permanent people there, because of the knowledge or the learning process that finance is going to have to, show them, it'll take time. And if we keep on getting new people as members on the core group, then it will take more time. So that's why I came up with communication number 24.14, because what I felt was that because I've been getting calls, because now people know that I'm on the committee, that they were saying, how come we're not selected, or how come we weren't even thought about, and why is these people set? So what they mentioned was that maybe each person, like say Councilwoman Wille, myself, and Nancy Crawford, each would select a person, and that would be the permanent people on the committee, on the core group. And so, like what Ms. Wille was mentioning about that, like we don't have to have this changeover, but the thing is, with this, it will be fair where each person involved, like you, myself, and Nancy, would have someone that we can select. Okay, and that to me would give more fairness on who's on this core group. And then, like Ms. Wille had mentioned earlier, then we can ask other. I'll make a motion to amend Resolution 18-13 draft 2 with the contents in 24.14.
Moved by Mr. Onishi and seconded by Mr. Kanuha to amend Resolution 18-13 with the contents of Communication 24.13.
14. There's two of them. So I'm not doing 1.3, I'm doing 1.4.
Or 1.4.
Okay, and in 1.4, like I mentioned before, this would state where each, I guess, the two council members and the finance director would be able to make their pick on who would be the three core members from the public. So I'm asking for your support, and as I explained earlier, to me that's where the fairness, and then, like I said, I've received phone calls, and talking to Nancy yesterday too, she's received a lot of calls about how come we're not on there. But then, like as Ms. Wille had mentioned, once we have this core group, now when it comes to different classifications, we will go out as advice from the experts or people in that certain field. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kanuha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just saw this, and I was kind of thinking on the same thing, because I've also been getting a few phone calls from constituents kind of wondering where these public names came from. And when I told them that, they were provided, first of all, I appreciate Ms. Wille's going out there and taking the lead on this. I really do. But when was asked where these names came from, I told them that they were provided from Ms. Wille, and they were part of the ad hoc committee. So to have these three be permanent on the task force, they were kind of perturbed by that, as in how Mr. Onishi laid this out, where it'll be a little bit more even in the people who are chosen. I see it more as, making it on an even level playing field. So I don't know how I'm going to vote for this, but this kind of brought to mind when I was talking to a few people who were calling my office about this specific subject. So I'll yield at this time.
I respond.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Wille.
Okay, and I think that these are valid questions, and I think no matter what, it's good that we discuss this so people have a better understanding. Let me say these are two from the ad hoc committee. I've actually, Stephen Hussey, but the other two that were on the ad hoc, I've never met them. I have no personal relationship with them. They were the two most contributing members of that force. I feel that making it where we're choosing people and doing this is that it becomes more political, and I'm reluctant. I mean, I'm doing this. This isn't my area of expertise. I'm not finance. I felt having people that were I knew really solid, that I would be willing to do this. So I think this isn't choices political. I have no idea whether any of these people would agree with anything that I would say. And I just would like this to not become something sides were all even and political. So you all could have picked somebody else to work on this, and I'm just really doing it and to the best of my ability. So I feel good being on this committee where I know that Nancy, we've met a lot, and we've met with the three that were, or we discussed them, and we were all in agreement. And again, I've been getting calls, Margaret, why haven't you consulted all of us, and why don't, and so I feel I've had to I didn't go out and ask, and I just sort of worked right. That's how it came about. So let me just say I don't even have any idea where these people are at, except I know that they're committed, that they've spent a lot of time. They already understand these taxes, and it's going to be not just learning each segment, it's learning how all of the taxes work together. That's the best I can do. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter.
I, too, got calls at my office, and I tried to refer them to you, Margaret, and we've had testimony about that, too. I think one person went as far as sending you their resume and you sending them the whole packet for them to read, and so they were concerned about the selection process. And I think when they were calling my office and going, "You're on the thing," and I didn't even know I was on it till I read the paper. When you gave that interview with the paper, and I found out that I was on it with Onishi, and because I didn't get a formal call. I remember informally talking about would you be interested? And at first I was saying, right now I got a lot on my plate and things like that. So first time that I saw me on it was when I read it in the paper. So that was I was a little stunned at that, and I didn't realize that it was going to be when we had talked about it in Hilo, and I think Ms. Ford was the one who said, okay, let Margaret work on this. Ms. Councilmember Margaret, go ahead and take the lead on this. I didn't know that you were going to be hand selecting the people that would sit on it. So now, when that happened, that's when I started getting calls at my office, and not just from people in my district, but I had people calling me from Zendel's district and Councilmember Ilagan's district too, questioning me because I was the finance chair. So I look at this as part of it as being fair and addressing the concerns of the people that had called and had come to testify also, that we remedy this by saying, okay, let's make it fair. Then Margaret will get to choose one, Councilmember Onishi will get to choose one, and Nancy. So I'm looking at leaning towards supporting this to help remedy some of the concerns that our people had. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ford?
Thank you. Margaret, tell us again which two were on the ad hoc committee, Janice Mahuna and Bob Price?
Yes.
Okay. And so they've already shown their commitment to this. And you selected Mr. Hussey, right?
No, that was from Nancy Crawford.
Okay. Well, that's already been taken care of. Now, didn't we, I thought that these names came up in front of the council and we've already voted on them. Is that correct?
Yes, and we told them they didn't need to come back again.
So we've told people, you're volunteering, they come up, we vote for them into the task force, and then we don't even advise them that, oh, by the way, you're not going to be on the task force, so you might not be on the task force. We're going to change it. That just doesn't seem to be very, fair is probably a kind way to say it. That just doesn't seem... Oh, no, really, honestly. I'm not comfortable with this at all, this resolution, or this amendment to the resolution. I mean, frankly, Margaret got this dumped on her. I think there should have been some other people on this from the council, but I'm not going to go there. Margaret was given the task. She did the task. We voted for these people. We told them you don't have to come back, and now we're going to say you may or may not be serving on this commission or this task force. I've also received phone calls, and what I've explained to people is that As the task force goes through different sections of the tax code and looks at it, one, the public can be part of the meeting. They certainly can testify to the meeting. They can make their opinions quite well known. And that at the last meeting we discussed quite extensively that we wanted to go out into the community in certain areas like agricultural taxes or something and get expertise in that area. And we'll go over to real property tax, and we're going to go there. If we're going to do exemptions, we're going to go there. So everybody in the community has the option to come in and talk about whatever they want on these taxes. They're not being left out. They're just not part of the permanent group of 9. I think this is an extremely poor way to treat people who have volunteered to do this work, have obviously shown their commitment. It's not the way to treat Margaret, who didn't want to do this, from my understanding, but took it on, and to do this thing, and now we want to change everything. I don't think it's Pono. I'm not going to vote for this.
I think Mr. Onishi wanted to speak. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to let Mr. Ilagan go since he hasn't spoken yet.
I did.
Oh, you wanted to respond?
But I wanted to just rebuttal Ms. Ford.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Onishi.
I guess, first of all, I must say, I don't think any council member just threw this upon Ms. Wille. I think she... I did. Well, then you did it, not us. So you should be telling that you had thrown this upon her. Okay, but the way you mentioned it was like we had done this to Ms. Wille.
Excuse me, I actually chose somebody else.
Well,
thank you.
Okay, but I don't know. But the thing is, that's we have to make it clear for the public that other council members did not throw it upon Ms. Wille. And I thought Ms. Wille wanted to do it anyway, and that's to my knowledge, but I don't know. But the second thing is, what we did at the last council meeting, it's not like how we treat any boards or commissions where we confirm where it's being selected to this certain, I guess, like legal or like I say, like a board or commission where you need the council's approval. This, what we just did, is a resolution where we had these people who were selected, that we just approved this resolution with these people on it. But the thing was, like I had mentioned earlier, I've been getting calls to say, why weren't I selected? Why wasn't I asked? Okay, and that's when I looked at this and I said, hey, okay, maybe what should happen is that each person, like the two council members and the finance director, should be able to select someone, and that way it would make it a more fair process instead of we being handed, this is the people we want, or this is the people that it's going to be on the core committee. So that's why I'm doing this resolution, just to make it more transparent to the public and to the other realtors or appraisers or whoever wanted to be on this, that we're showing that, okay, there's a process, and this is a process that we're doing. Thank you.
Is that, Ms. Wille, did you want to reply, because Mr. Ilagan and Mr. Yoshimoto haven't spoken yet?
Well, I just want to correct a couple things. It was actually Karen Eoff that asked me in front of the whole council and said, can we ask you, Margaret, to do this? So I just want to, wasn't Brenda, for what that's worth. And originally I had sort of hoped that, Valerie or even Greggor would be interested, and I just didn't get any, and then later, said she would prefer not to be. So I did take it on. If someone else would like to take my place, I'd be happy to be replaced. Okay. If we go ahead with this change. And I'm fine with it either way.
Mr. Ilagan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Wille, would you like to be relieved of your duties? I can take it on for you.
If you leave it the way I did it and work with Nancy, I'm fine being on it. I feel that it would work. It's a good group. The public knows who the people are. We've been going through this for several months. I've been working on it already. I'm committed. If it suddenly becomes more political, where you're not having those people come, where we're not having the people that were already here, then I would rather not. And it's up to you all. I'm not, life's going to go on. I feel that this is a good group, and I think that you're making it a more political process by doing this. And you were asked way back when, and your answer was no at that time. But it's up to the council. I'm not going to, whatever you all decide, the majority decides.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Well, I still have the floor,
yes.
If it's okay, Madam Chair. I do want to say it's not political. When I look at every person getting to appoint a community member, the members that were chosen before, they went through this process, and having new members coming in, they might see things that the previous members didn't see. And we're here trying to improve the government, and by working on this task force, we're taking the right step forward. And right now, it seems like we're losing the passion to continue this. And if you don't want to do it, Councilmember Wille, I will take on that position for you. I'm telling you to offer now. What happened in the past, happened in the past. Let's let bygones be bygones and move on. I will be supporting this amendment, and I hope and urge my colleagues to vote on it. Thank you.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Wille, I think your comments that you started with earlier on that talked about wanting to build consensus, I think is a really good thing. And as we're having this discussion, as we're sitting here and thinking about this, it appears that we're losing that consensus at this moment. So this is just a thought. I want to throw this out to you. Rather than pre-selecting the members of the public here today, why not make it in the spirit of having a collaborative process, leave it to yourself, Mr. Onishi, and Ms. Crawford to come up with the 3 members of the public, provided that you have complete consensus, meaning complete agreement. So in other words, the 3 of you would have to agree on every single person, and that if one of you decides, no, I choose not to choose that person, then that person is not selected. That way, your 3 minds will come together and say, okay, well, these are the 3 people we want. That simplifies the process. You leave it before us. You're always, well, we'd like to have 9-0, I know, but maybe that's not something that is as realistic. So it's kind of a hybrid approach between Mr. Onishi's approach, but it allows you, Mr. Onishi, and Ms. Crawford to sit, talk, select, and provided all 3 of you agree that these 3 people are good, and that's just a thought, Ms. Wille.
Would you like to respond, or is it okay to go to Ms. Ford?
No. That's the answer. I am, when you say if you don't want to do it, I do want to do it, but I want to do it where I know that it's a really solid group, and I know this is a really solid group, so that for me, it's sort of an unknown, getting into negotiating it, and so it just puts it uncertain. If you said, here's this other person, I'm bringing them in, and they're absolutely wonderful, okay, but it also takes away that transparency from the public. We're doing it. I guess my answer is no. I think that this is a good group, and I think that, my inclination is just to withdraw or postpone this if you want to try to work on something alternative, but I'm certainly not going to support the amendment, and I'm not going, I'd rather not be on it if I don't know going into it that it's a group that I feel confident that will have the level of knowledge that I feel is important, and who will not be into a political, it won't become political side. So that's where I'm at.
Ms. Ford.
Thank you. I have to respectfully disagree with Mr. Ilagan regarding fresh look at things. While I do agree with fresh looks at everything, the fact that two of these three people have already been immersed in the ad hoc committee and are very, very aware of the issues that we're facing, I think is exactly what we need. Basically, they have the experience and more expertise than anyone knew we could bring in. We were supposed to get this thing done. There's supposed to be 40 recommendations. We're supposed to get them done. And then I, in fact, am issuing bills to make some changes that we're referring to a committee that doesn't even exist yet. And this I look at as a method to slow the whole thing down. And I don't want to see that happen. I trust Ms. Crawford's choice. I trust the two people who were on the ad hoc committee. I don't know either one of them. I don't know any of these three people. But when we start saying, well, we're going to choose this and choose that, we're going to have to sit down and negotiate, and it's going to be 2 votes out of 3 or whatever it is, you know, and it's going to be done behind closed doors, away from the public. Ms. Wille is absolutely correct. The transparency gets lost. And it's just not right to vote for these people in public and then basically toss them to the wind and say we're going to choose other people. I just think that's really terrible. Just a terrible thing.
Ms. Poindexter.
That we postponed it and then we changed people again. So I don't see this as any different than what we did before. However, just for clarification purposes, when Ms. Wille stated that I didn't want to, I would want to have been part of the process. I didn't feel that 3 council members should be sitting on this committee, so that's when we had the 3. That's why I opted out. And I did tell you that I didn't feel 3 should be in, and if 3 was going to be in, I felt, because it was going to be me and Fresh, but that's 2 people from the east side. So that's when I suggested to Brenda, maybe she should sit on it, because then you have a west side, then it would be fair for the people. Then when I started getting calls from our public saying, why does your council people have to sit on it? Why not more public, the public sitting on it? So they needed to get there. The process was unfortunately kind of flawed in our way, because what I remember is Brenda asking Miss Wille to do it, and then Karen, I think you were running the meeting at that time, and kind of like said something to Margaret also. But just the way the process is, and now that we're getting a lot of feedback from the public, and I know you have gotten, Margaret, calls too, because I've had endless, my phone is ringing endlessly, and my staff can vouch to that. But I'd like to ask if Miss Nancy Crawford is in the Hilo chambers, if she could come up, please. Hi, Nancy. I'd just like to get your take on this. And did you, and the person you select, and how do you feel the process went? Or was that person your selection? And because it was stated that it was, so I'm just kind of curious to get some information from you and your take on this, please.
Thank you. This is Nancy Crawford, Director of Finance. The council has been, this is a resolution of the county council, and it has been under discussion for several months. In my very first visit to the table to mention anything about this, I expressed some concerns about actually identifying all the members of the council in the resolution. I wasn't sure that that was necessary. But in going forward, I would like to say that Ms. Wille has been, very nice and open, and I think has honestly done the best job that she can in selecting people that she thinks are appropriate. I had sent one memorandum to the council where I identified 3. This was when I was going ahead and kind of moving forward as this resolution was still in process, and I identified 3 members that I would select to be on this committee as we were going ahead as an administrative committee. One of those people is Mr. Stuart Hussey, which Ms. Wille retained when she was making her selections. Beyond that, I've really felt like this is a council resolution, and council should make the decision as to, what they would like to have in this resolution. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. But, and one thing I got to say, Margaret, thank you for pushing this forward. I know this came from Pete Hoffman, and that's why you kind of inherited this and brought this forward. So thank you for that work.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Okay. What I'm hearing is there's some concerns about politicizing the process, but I think anything that comes before us could be categorized, in that way. So, just some thoughts then, Ms. Wille. If we really want to allow the group to do its work, maybe, this is just thinking out loud, maybe it's better that no council members serve on it, and that we allow the task force with the people with expertise and Ms. Crawford leading the way, let them work on it, and that so we don't nominate anyone and just let her work with it. I mean, this is just thinking out loud. That's one approach. Or the other approach is then we each, or all of us, will submit names, because the problem becomes the public. The public wants to be involved in the process, so they want to make sure that they're considered, and there's just literally too many names to mention on who would want to be considered and so forth. So, simplistic approach is maybe no council members be on board. The more involved and transparent way would be to say, well, then let's bring everyone forward, because it does seem a little difficult to hear that people are calling, inquiring, and not have a process where everyone is considered. Ms. Wille, I don't know if that helps in any way.
I do think that if we were going to do it another way, we ought to put it off so that people that came forth and came here are not told you don't have to come here again for this vote. I think that's bad form. Again, this was something I tried to encourage any other person on this council to do this, and there was no other takers. So, and it was originally Valerie and Onishi. Valerie did say at first she would be willing to do it, but she reconsidered and decided it was, for whatever reasons, east, west, north, or south, or whatever, would be better. But, and it was, I don't remember Brenda saying anything. Anyway, I don't want it to get here where we're fussing among ourselves. I'm happy to go along with whatever. I think it's good to have a couple people from the council and have it, and not be where then they're all coming and there's no one really with a handle on it. We're the ones that make the final decision. So I think that if we're going to reopen this, I just don't want it that we're voting a certain way and not allowing, say, these people that we already spoke to and came here. This has actually been going on now for like 3.5, 4 months. We postponed it, so it's not like it hasn't been on the agenda. And maybe it's now people are looking and seeing who's on, and they don't like someone, or they don't like me, or they don't like Fresh, more likely. But anyway, I'm just saying. So I'm open to whatever the council wills it. These certainly, in terms of Margaret's people, these are people I don't know. I wanted to just jump on this so we could get the most done right away, and I picked the 2 people that were contributing on the ad hoc, and then Nancy's first selection, and I thought that was solid, best I can do. You want to do it another way, it's, no problem, but I think it's good having a couple council people on and not, who knows where else it goes. We will be, I did put in there that they report like on a quarterly basis so as to keep everybody involved, so.
Yeah. I just need to respond because she said I committed to it, but I just want to say that I did not commit to it. I found out when I was in the paper that I was selected. I told you that I talked to you about that, and if you could talk to the other council members first, and I never heard back from you until I read it in the paper. So I just need to make that clear to the public. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Well, a thought just occurred before we go into the vote, and that is if Ms. Crawford sticks to her appointee, which was Mr. Hussey, and Margaret's able to choose one of the other two, then it's just Onishi's choice that would change the makeup of the three. So actually, two of the three will probably remain named, and Mr. Onishi would have a chance to select somebody. I just wanted to add that because it may not be as big of a change as you're looking at.
Two.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk? This is on the amendment, communication 24.14.
Ms. Ford?
No.
Mr. Ilagan?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi? Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Wille?
No.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Eoff?
Aye.
Chair Eoff, you have 7 ayes, 6 ayes, 2 noes, 1 absent.
Thank you. If there's any more discussion,
Can we take a couple minutes break?
sure. Call for a recess, 5 minutes. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Thank you, but Ms. Ford, I've been advised that before we can really have discussion on this resolution as amended, we would need to suspend Council Rule 24.
Yes. Madam Chair, may I make a motion to suspend Council Rule number 24? Second. To hold
It
over.
was moved by Mr. Onishi, second by Mr. Ilagan to suspend Rule 24, and we can continue discussing now. Go ahead, Ms. Ford.
Well, we need to take the vote on the suspension, because I'm not going to be talking about that.
Oh, okay. Then we'll take a vote on the suspension of the rule.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Ilagan?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha? Mr. Onishi? Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Wille? Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Eoff?
Aye.
Chair Eoff, you have 8 ayes on the motion to suspend and 1 absent.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Ms. Ford.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Wille said that one of the 3 people that had been chosen was from West Hawaii. Is that correct? Which one of them?
Bob Price.
Bob Price, okay. Here's my concern, and I'm not volunteering for this, but here's my concern. If we don't have one person from West Hawaii and one person from East Hawaii, as you divide the island north-south, if we wind up having 2 people from East Hawaii, there's going to be a real uproar from West Hawaii that this is a, how will I say this politely? Think of there will be suspicion about anything that comes out of the task force. And that's one of the reasons I would like Ms. Wille to stay on this, is because she does represent the west side. I know that she's a trustworthy person. Mr. Onishi is from the east side. He has been the finance chair before. I think it's a good fit. Do I think it should have been maybe other people? Perhaps, but at this stage, we need to get moving on this. And so I'm having a real problem, not with the task force, but going anything other than at least one East and one West council member. Now, if you're going to throw all council members off, then I think we need to retrieve all of my bills that I've sent over there, because the task force is not a legislative body. They're going to be providing recommendations. I'm the only person so far that's issued any tax legislation. I have more coming up. And while I don't think it's necessary the best way to send it to the task force, I'm willing to do that. But if this is going to get delayed and all these other things that are starting to go on, or there's a lack of transparency, or it's going to be loaded to the east side of the island, I can't support it. So I'm getting really concerned. I thought we had consensus here. Certainly the last council had consensus that we needed to do this. We hired a consultant, and he came forward with recommendations. I've added some comments and some legislation in addition to that. But this is going down the drain really fast. So I'd just like to say that I think for sure we need one If we're going to have council members, we need one East and one West. Thank you.
Just a point of order, Ms.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kanuha.
Based off of what Ms. Ford said, she's indicating that Ms. Wille is not going to be on the task force.
So, and actually, we're only discussing the bill as the resolution as amended, which includes Ms. Wille and Mr. Onishi as members.
Okay.
So there is no really discussion about changing the makeup except for the way
Right now, we have an east and a west side. Okay, thank you.
You, Ms. Wille?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's possible just to postpone it to the next meeting. I'd like to know who the proposed, if there is another person going to be on it. I'd like, and Fresh would like to suggest someone. I'd like to know who that is before I decide whether I want to be on the committee or not. Is that possible, to just postpone it and maybe...
Nancy doesn't want it postponed. She wants to postpone.
Well, Nancy doesn't want to postpone. I mean, Nancy, we've been postponing along the way. So that's where I'm at. I mean, I think this is a big job. I mean, I'm taking it on as something big, and I know maybe I'm not trying to be fussy or something. For me, to do it, it's not an area I know. I feel I really have to know a lot, and I would like to know who those other 3 people are going to be, so. I don't feel that's asking a lot to hold it and,
Would you like to direct that to Ms. Crawford if she's...
Well, I mean, I waited to work on this while they were going through the budget for months while I was ready to go forward with this way back when. So I think we really want to have a group that's going to be holding together, and I see it as a big commitment for me. Again, if there is somebody else, I think the balance is important, because even if there isn't something wrong, it's still going to be a concern that there's not, and we really don't need that. I think we've done really good in terms of minimizing east-west split, and by the way, I'm from the north, but other than that, so I would appreciate just maybe postpone it, and Fresh and Nancy and I can get together and proceed, and that's my motion.
Okay, so...
I have a motion to postpone made by Ms. Wille and second by Ms. Ford.
Can I speak on the postponement then?
Yes, you can.
Okay, well, I won't be supporting the postponement because, to me, I think we're making this too much complicated. Because as Ms. Eoff had mentioned, or as Chairwoman Eoff had mentioned earlier, Nancy has her pick. All you have to do is pick one of the 2. And then that leaves it up to me to pick one person, and that's it. Now, Mr. Yoshimoto had that scenario where we all meet, Nancy, yourself, and myself, and we select the 3. Mr. Yoshimoto mentioned that, but you didn't want that idea. So why are we going to postpone it when you can have your pick today and tell us who you want from the 2? Nancy has hers, who is Mr. Hussey, and then all I have to do is just bring the next, whoever I pick, to the next meeting. And like I said, talking to Nancy yesterday, she wants to move on. So even if we don't have the 3rd pick or whatever, she wants to meet with us already, so we can start going forward. And that's what she wants to do. So I cannot support this postponement because we're making something small so complicated. And so, like I said, you have the picks already. So all you have to do right now is tell us who do you want from the 2, and that's it. And then we move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ford.
Out of courtesy for the person who's not going to be picked, I would like to see this postponement take place. 2 weeks isn't going to kill us at this point. It's been dragged out for months. But, really, to have this happen in public and have somebody unpicked after they've been voted on by this whole council, I just think that lacks courtesy. So please, let's just postpone this. Gives Ms. Wille a chance to talk to Nancy and to Fresh and make the call she's going to have to make. Thank you.
Thank you, and I've been reminded that we should postpone to a certain date, so if you're recommending 2 weeks, I just don't have a calendar, but
July 10th.
July
10th.
July 10th.
Council.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on postponing till July 10th? See none. Madam Clerk.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Ilagan?
No.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi? Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Wille? Mr. Yoshimoto?
No.
Chair Eoff?
Aye.
Chair Eoff, you have 5 ayes, 3 noes, and 1 absent.
Thank you. We will postpone Resolution 18 to July 10th. Okay. I was requested to take Resolution 125